Hey, Margie here. Our skin's an extremely important organ. And what we put on our skin can affect our bones, our overall health, because it's absorbed through our body. But there's more to it than that. And I'm very excited about our special guest today because she's going to help us rethink about our skincare routine and teach us some new concepts that can really make a big difference. So our special guest today is Nadine Artemis, and she's the author of 2 books, including Renegade Beauty and Holistic Dental Care. She's the creator of Living Libations, a luxury line of organic, wild-crafted, non-GMO serums, elixirs, and essential oils for those seeking the purest of the pure botanical, natural health and beauty products. Nadine is an innovative aromacologist that formulates immune-enhancing blends. Her healing creations, along with her concept of renegade beauty, encourage effortless regimes and inspire people to rethink conventional notions of beauty and wellness. She has received glowing reviews for her work in The Hollywood Reporter, GOOP, Vogue, People, the New York Times, just to name a few, and she has many celebrity fans. And here's a fun fact. She opened the first full concept aromatherapy shop in North America in Toronto at the age of 22. So today we really talk about lots of different things, but why the bacteria on our skin is so important. And Nadine tells us some things that we can do to make a huge, huge difference. So stay tuned. Welcome, Nadine. I'm really happy to have you here on the podcast. And I think this topic is so important and one that's just often overlooked, and people don't realize how much information they can gain from what you're going to tell us today. So welcome.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
So before we get started, I always like to know the backstory, and I always find it so fascinating, how you started this company and even got into this area. So can you share that with us?
Sometimes it's like, I don't know where to sort of start the story, but definitely I know, I feel like everything I'm doing now, I can see the roots in my childhood, including mixing with roots and flowers and petals. I really had this desire to concoct and mix. And then if it wasn't outside, I would be in my mom's bathroom mixing her like Chanel perfume with like the chemicals under the sink. And then eventually at grade 9, I got to do a more legitimate mixing for a science fair project. I chose to recreate perfumes because I'd found a book at the library that was all about perfume. And back in those days, I just had my bottles of synthetic perfume that I would sometimes mix up. But I got to really understand like how perfumes were made and where they come from, and about distillation in ancient Egypt. And the book said, these distillations are called essential oils, and you could probably find them at a health food store. So we drove to the big city of Toronto, and I got my first whiffs of lemongrass, jasmine, orange, and it really spoke to me in a different way. And then fast forward through some teen years, more makeup, more perfumes, and then I get to university. And I'm skipping school that day, and I'm watching Lisa Bonet on a talk show, and she's talking about food and the environment and, how that's all connected, and like eating like for health, which wasn't like fully a concept fully then, and I was fascinated by it. And I also walked home every day and passed this little health food store called Grains and Beans and Things. And eventually I bought like every book and bean in that store. And part of the books was this other one about like, I wish I knew what it was called. I could probably look it up, but it's about like going to the supermarket and reading the labels. And like the whole book was about the label situation. And that was fascinating. And like learning that, brown sugar is just like white sugar with molasses, or there's things in all brand that are like literally cardboard. Or you could have, like cheese in a soup, but then the cheese, like then there's like 12 ingredients on the cheese that aren't listed in the soup label, and just all that sort of stuff, which made me go, oh my, like all the stuff in my bathroom is the same story. And I thought, it was like, I had the Body Shop, so I thought it was like, green beauty back in the day. And I realized, that the fuzzy peach bath oil had never been in peach. There was no pineapple in the face scrub. And so that exciting moment actually led me to go, oh my God, now I have a reason to mix and concoct and bring in all that other stuff I've always wanted to do. So it was really fascinating. And then just, I mean, besides the mixing, I mean, just diving into the raw materials and the distillations of essential oils and all the beautiful, you know, each characteristic of each oil, and then scouring the earth to like find things that I was reading about but couldn't smell. And I had to just catch a whiff of like why they were making perfumes out of that in the 17th century, or why they were blending that in some skincare recipe in ancient Egypt. So that was really great. And just connecting with all these distillers, and then just finding that there is a quality of distillation and ingredients out there that just wasn't readily available back in the 90s. And then so I also started to import all these things as well when I was going to university, and I started making all my own, you know, skincare stuff, and then, you know, selling it to friends and family. And it was like doing stuff, you know, we were helping eczema and, you know, taking care of all this stuff. So it was awesome. Then I finished my degree, and I knew I wanted to like open a store. So I opened up North America's first full concept aromatherapy store back in like 1992.
Wow, I didn't know this about you. The first store, that's incredible.
Yeah, and that was awesome, and it was so fun, and I met lots of fun people there. Like Alanis came in once after, like, we opened up the store like at midnight after a concert, and we just like, you know, smelled oils at the scent bar till the wee hours of the morning. Or, you know, I would make custom perfumes for people or different, you know, celebrities and stuff like that. So it was super fun. And then when I met Ron, who's now my husband and stuff, we created it was a new chapter. And that's when in 2002, we started Living Libations, which is where we are today.
You know, it's so funny because I also teach happiness. And one of the big things is it's important to have passion in what you're doing. And I just feel, oh my gosh, you know, this is your calling. This is your passion. It's so evident. And when you're in that flow, not only are you a happy person, but also you're doing so much good in the world, because it's just what you were, you know, you're here for your purpose. I love that from such an early age, you were always mixing and doing things. Wow.
Yeah. I'm so thankful that I don't know, you know, clued into that, you know. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. So it's interesting because we have talked about the skin on this podcast in terms of not wanting toxins to get in, and how what you put on your skin really matters. But you have a different concept because you talk about the skin biome and how that can affect the microbiome, which we all know affects the bone. So maybe tell us a little bit about the connection between all three, I guess, would be really helpful in terms of, and how you know, what you do for the skin biome, like how you treat that.
Yeah, for sure. I think, you know, the toxicity thing is important, and also, but just for sure that, but like, because we can drink in the toxins that we put on our skin, the good side of that is that we have transdermal absorption. And then if we apply good things, not even just neutral, but beneficial things, then we're actually like adding. So, you know, we don't just have to neutralize it, but we can actually then use our skin as a vehicle for our health, for our immune system. And then, of course, you know, the toxins would affect the microbiome, and the microbiome, I mean, it's something we've been studying for about 20 years, but really just sort of understanding more in the past sort of decade on a more like common people level rather than like a scientist in a lab. And what also, I think that gives us even more reason to not do toxins, because we are messing and mutating with the skin's microbiome. And I'd say even prior to the toxins and the microbiome story is even grounding in something I call cosmoetics, which is, you know, understanding and using the elements to apply quote unquote to our skin and our bodies, and realizing that we are in communion with the elements. They're essential to us to thrive. And I see, you know, water, air, sun, and the gifts from the earth as our finest beauty attendants. You know, it's not just the skin. The care of the skin doesn't just come from, you know, a jar or a natural jar of cream. And we got to go, you know, sort of take it back a bit and understand our body's relationship to the cosmos. And that, you know, there are meteorites that landed on the planet, and those microbiomes are a part of our microbiome. And that to, our skin needs fresh air. We need to breathe. We need clothes that breathe. We need to apply ingredients that allow our skin to breathe, ingredients that aren't petroleum derived and create this sort of invisible layer of saran wrap on our pores that inhibit the respiration cycle of our skin and pores. We need, real water. All water is real, but I mean, like, not just the water that is municipal tap water and got all those chemicals in it. Hopefully we can filter, we can do those things. And then we want to engage with, like, hopefully some lakes, some oceans. And with the gifts from the earth, we can use things like the essential oils and like jojoba and the cold pressed plant oils to care and clean our skin. And then, of course, we can engage with the element of the sun, which is here to, our skin was literally designed to be exposed to sunbeams, and that our interaction and our communication with sun and the sun's rays is essential to healthy skin. It's not just this harbinger of wrinkles and hyperpigmentation, but is actually essential to our skin and essential to the framework holding up our skin, our bones, which need sunlight. So our skin is designed with thousands of vitamin D receptors all over that literally need to engage with the sun's rays, and not just a supplement of vitamin D, because there's so many beautiful reactions. There's a whole reaction there and a communication. And so we need the sun. So vitamin D is like called vitamin D, but it's actually a hormonal precursor. And it creates beautiful things in our body, like a healthy cholesterol sulfate. Our interaction with the sun creates like a water soluble form of vitamin D, and the supplement is more of a fat soluble form of vitamin D. And so when we engage with sunlight, we're creating beautiful things for our immune system and our skin, like antimicrobial peptides, catholicitins, which are so essential. And vitamin D is so essential for bone health, and for teeth health, and to prevent cavities and all that kind of stuff. So we really, we can't deny the sun, and especially in the name of beauty, which I feel like that's sort of been the biggest negator of the sun, sort of is our beauty culture that's like, no sun. And so we're really cutting off actually a source of well-being. And it's not necessarily a creator of wrinkles. It's actually kind of juicifies. I know that's not a very scientific word, but it juicifies our inside, and it helps our hormones, and it makes our skin strong. And, at the turn of the century, doctors would prescribe sunlight. Even there was a Nobel Prize won in 1902 for heliotherapy, using light to heal. We need the full range of the beautiful rainbow spectrum that comes with light, from the red light, the near infrared light, all the way up to the ultraviolet rays, the UVB ray, which creates vitamin D. So all these things are essential.
So let's unpack this, because you said so many things. Let's start with the vitamin D, because this is an audience who really is very keen on vitamin D. Everyone's getting their vitamin D levels checked. And as you said,
awesome.
It is a hormone, and it's essential for so many things, but critical for our bones. So what is your recommendation then for people in terms of getting out in the sun? And, is there anything with your products that you do? Like what do you recommend?
So I have just, because I know in podcasts, we go through things quickly. So on our website and in my book, I do have like articles and ways to interact with the sun wisely. So just know it is spelled out,
And we'll have the links to all of that.
Yeah.
So okay, good.
So we want to start slowly, but surely, and we want to start in the spring and slowly build up our melanin levels to receive the sun's rays. So besides sunscreen and the toxins that are in sunscreen, which is a lot, and that's like a whole thing on its own. Things like oxybenzene, which is banned in Europe, but still available in North America. I mean, that's non-carcinogenic ingredient until it's exposed to sun, which is crazy. So there's all that. But the big issue with sunscreen is that you receive the sun's rays split. So you don't get UVA and UVB together. You only get UVA, which is on its own isolated, is a sun damaging ray. So if you were to be like a trucker who's got the same route, and every, you know, afternoon you're going west, and then that arm through the window, because the window blocks UVB, then you're just getting UVA, that arm's going to have more freckles and that kind of stuff. So that just gives you an idea of when the UVB is filtered out. So when we apply sunscreen, we're only getting UVA isolate, which studies show, there's some Cochrane reviews, I have the studies cited in my book, but the use of sunscreen over time does show scientifically to create more freckles, more wrinkles, more moles. So that's not a good story. Now, and then you're not getting any vitamin D. And that's the good stuff. That's what's going to make your tan worth it. Right? And so we want to receive the sun's rays. And you actually, the 11 to 3 thing, I don't necessarily agree with. You're good to tan until solar noon, which right now here it's like 1:30. So that'd be for you too in New Jersey. In all summer long, solar noon in this area, because of daylight savings time, is till 1 o'clock. So that's the best. So sort of from the morning till 1 is the best rays to get. And again, when you're not wearing sunscreen, you're aware of your own body in the sun. So you're not turning off your own body's sort of alarm system that's saying, hey, it's time to get out of the sun. So that's important too. And if you're concerned about your face, even though, like, you know, I think I'm doing pretty good for my skin, and I am, like, you know, sunning my full body like all summer long, and, you know, for 20 years, and it hasn't, there may be other things aging me, but the sun has not been aging me. But if that is a concern, wear a hat, you know, tan the rest of your body. You got your back, your legs, you know, you want full exposure. And there's a really good app called D-Minder. Do you know about that?
I don't know.
So yeah, it's a great app. And I believe it's by like a grassroots vitamin D organization as well. So it's D-Minder, you download that, and then you can put in your supplementary dose, but also you put in your geography and like cloud coverage that day, how much body you have exposed. And then you press start when you start your sun session, and then we'll tell you how much vitamin D you're producing, which is awesome. So that's really important too, because our vitamin D levels are a moving target. You know, whatever you got measured from your doctor a month ago isn't your story today. So we need to know kind of on a daily basis, where is our vitamin D level at? And I find that's the simplest method. And then in the winter months, you can add in your supplements and that kind of thing. What also it shows me is that to really be sufficient in vitamin D from sun use is a bit of a dedication. You know what I mean? Like it's, you know, it's definitely like, I mean, I create my schedule around that. And luckily I've been working this hard for this many decades to have that kind of freedom in my schedule. But that's really key. And that will help guide and make your sun time productive. So I think that's really key. And also I've got other studies in the book too, that just show that, you know, people that live closer to the equator, spend more time outside for work or recreation, have a less chance of developing something like severe, like melanoma. And that seems to come from overexposure to artificial light. And that study was done in the 90s, before we were all sort of planted in front of our screens all day. So that is an interesting thing. But really, we have to understand that vitamin D is so essential, and it's essential for our beauty. It's essential for, you know, our bones health, which is holding up the framework of your skin. So as I'm sure you've discussed many times, there's a natural bone loss that can happen, obviously, and women get it more as the estrogen comes down. But we must keep, but we're very obsessed with the skin. But really, you know, once you're in your 60s or so, some of the stuff happening to your skin can literally be from the slow shrinkage of bones over time. So I find that the sun is essential for that, vitamin D levels. And then something like PMF is really great for bone density. I actually haven't, I mean, it's kind of mind-blowing what PMF can do for, which is pulse electromagnetic frequencies. I don't know if you've talked about that on the podcast.
I haven't talked about it, but yeah.
Oh yeah, because to me, I mean, it's like we've seen the difference in our bones. Like, I mean, I felt like I even had to get, like, my slippers were tight and my hat got tight afterwards, because it's because bones are paleoelectric. So they really respond to the pulse electromagnetic frequencies. And I don't know if it's been like 20 or 30 years or so that NASA has, acknowledged that PMF, they have a PMF on, on everything going into space, because it keeps the astronauts from losing their bone density.
Yeah, we've talked about
So
the low frequency vibration that also helps with bone. We've had that on the
well, maybe
podcast.
that, yeah, if that's a
Yeah.
pulse. So I find, like, again, because if we're talking about like holding up the structure of our skin, I feel like the PMF and the vitamin D are the most, like, essential for that.
Let's get into now the microbiome and the
Yes.
skin biome. And why don't you talk about, well, first of all, what's so fascinating to me is oftentimes people will have an issue with their skin, and then they go to the dermatologist and they give them maybe some steroid cream, or they do something to just, let's get rid of it. But yet this is an indication, this is a sign that something's going on or something may not be right. And it's so important. And oftentimes we don't look at it like that. So why don't you share? Because I know that's a big thing of what you do, looking at blackheads, looking at the eczema, looking at all these different things as indication that something's not right, which is really in the long run extremely helpful, because we can take action then. So why don't you share a little bit about your viewpoint on that?
Yeah, and again, the sun is compatible with our skin's microbiome, and it's helping the microbiome from the inside out. And yeah, going to the dermatologist is interesting, because it seems like in their arsenal of solutions is really the antithesis of what the skin needs, because cortisone creams and antibiotics are literally like the opposite of what the skin needs. We generally, a lot of us grew up, well, it still exists, is we're kind of in this skin type hype, where everything going on in the skin is about the skin type. And really, that was just a marketing thing that was created by Clinique in the 1960s, and really is not relevant, because anything going on with your skin, if it's eczema, psoriasis, thrush, dandruff, dander, keratosis pilaris, like hyperpigmentation, anything going on with the skin is an imbalance in the microbiome. And so now, through the study of the microbiome, we are understanding things like, that just like, and if you've got blackheads, you probably have constipation in the lower intestine. Like, it's not, it's certainly not going to be solved by antibiotics or cortisone. And what we now know too about studying the microbiome is, when, for things like eczema, psoriasis, is when that happens in an area, you're seeing that microbiome of that area really, starts to drop in diversity, that kind of thing. So it's a real indication of the health of the skin. So as gross as it sounds, I say allow the bacteria to be your beautician. And most of our modern skincare things, including the ingredients, are really inhibiting that natural system. Also, when I am thinking about the body and its systems, I'm always trying to sort of stand back and sort of see, well, what does the body do naturally? Because I'm always interested in the least amount of effort, the least amount of maintenance. What can we not do? How do we get the body to just sort of do it while we're sleeping? Because that's the best. And that's where it's really key to know, most of the ingredients we're putting on, and certainly the hardcore stuff from the dermatologist, is literally mutating the microbes in the microbiome that are there to do the work for you. Our over-exfoliating, our chemical acne products are all messing with the skin's microbiome. The bacteria on our face, they need some dead skin cells. It needs some sebum in the pores to that's what it eats. And we can't just, wipe off the bacteria and expect the biology of our bodies to work. So it's very important that we're using things that are compatible with the microbiome and work with the microbiome systems. And that's what's so awesome about, a lot of natural plant extracts and essential oils, is that they're able to deal with the pathogens, whether that's in oral care or on topically on our skin, without messing with the friendly bacteria, which is just literally the exact sort of medicine that we need right now. We need to be able to deal with the pathogens in our mouths, without messing with the good bacteria. So that's what's really awesome and different than using a benzoyl peroxide on a zit or using frankincense on a zit, because the frankincense will clear it up. All essential oils to varying degrees are antibacterial, antiviral, and antifungal. Some are also anti-inflammatory, etc. So they've got all this medicine, but without the part where, like, antibiotics, sort of this indiscriminate assassin, and will just take it all out. Whereas there's an intelligence with this essential oils that we still don't know all about, but when we test them and do studies, we're able to see that they actually are like quorum sensing inhibitors. So they're able to inhibit the gene expression and the communication of pathogens, which is what we need. And sometimes topically on the skin, you need a heavy hitter like that. Or maybe you've just had, you have a wound, or you have a surgery scar. You can use those essential oils to clean that up, seal and heal the skin, and then start using other things topically, like, mixing that frankincense with jojoba or something like that, right? So they're just great medicine to seal and heal the skin, and to also bring balance to the areas that we need, just all those classic beauty issues like rosacea, eczema, hyperpigmentation. I mean, we've got blends like in the doodad family that literally, work to dissolve the hyperpigmentation or the melasma.
Wow, well, you said so many things. So there's just so many things that are so contrary to what a lot of people are believing, because everybody is getting the peels. So let's talk about those peels. People get the peels that totally turn their face red for, I don't know, a week or so.
Oh, yeah. And then you can't go in the sun.
So tell us about the peels. So besides
peels, whether it's the chemical to just whatever you're buying that's like scrubbing and over exfoliating. Well, when you understand, so the top layer of our skin, which is like as thin as like a credit card, it's like one cell thin, so to speak. And there's 5 layers in that tiny like credit card layer line. And when you see how from the basal area, the cells are generated and come up, and there's a whole system where the cells go up through the 5 layers. And we're concerned with the cells on the stratum corneum. So when we over exfoliate, and again, it could be, again, with just something seemingly mild, we are exposing the younger cells to the surface too soon. It's like kind of like having a baby run the show. They're too young, they're too vulnerable. And when we over exfoliate our skin, especially with like a chemical peel, it's leaving your skin and your immune system vulnerable. It's kind of like leaving the front door open when you're going away on vacation. You're taking away part of that top layer that's a bit of the armor, but obviously we want it to be fluid and flexible. And then other ingredients are really affecting the lipid barrier, or we're stripping it away with alcohols or petroleum and then trying to add back in a synthetic oil to re-moisturize. And that whole game has got to go. It's literally disrupting the microbiome. Then you're in a catch-22, right? You're trying to solve things. It's kind of like whack-a-mole. You're trying to solve one thing, something other symptom appears, and all of that. Also, through the study of the microbiome, what we now know is that surfactants, whether that's from your mild face foaming face wash cleanser from the health food store.
Explain to everybody what that is, though, because people may not know what that is.
Surfactants? Yeah, well, it's just like a harsh chemical that foams, basically. It's in everything, shampoos, toothpaste. It's not good for oral care either.
And what name would people see on that? Like if they're looking
sodium lauryl sulfate. And it has like 50 sort of derivatives that sodium laureth sulfate, it's pretty common, SLS. But basically a surfactant. We don't need, I say to use soap, like a bar soap, a natural bar soap, for pits and bits, and no other. So, scrub your nails, of course, wash your hands, but we don't need soap anywhere else. You don't need soap to cleanse your face. You don't need to soap your elbow, like, unless you've been up to your elbows in grease or something. So we that's all the surfactant family. We don't need surfactants. And what they're seeing under microscope, and now that we're studying the microbiome, is that we are getting surfactant splinters in the stratum corneum, which is the very top layer of the skin. And those don't rinse away. So once you've rinsed your face, those microscopic surfactant splinters are still there, mutating and messing with that microbiome. And that those surfactants over time build up, and then it's going to, maybe it's a dry patch or a melasma expression or some eczema. It's going to be different for each person, how that expresses itself. So it's really important that there's just a lot of unprogramming to do.
Wow, Nadine. So let's talk about what does work. Like, what have you found? And tell us the mix, because you've been doing this for a very long time and you have beautiful skin, but it does work. And your company's been so helpful to so many people. So really tell us what you found does work. And also, I just am curious then, in terms of exfoliation, do you believe in a mild exfoliant, like once a week?
I'll go through
okay,
that.
So go through, tell us what does work. Now everyone's sitting on pins and needles. Okay, this doesn't work, that doesn't work. Help, because everybody we care about our skin.
Of course.
But also we care about our bones, and we know the synthetics are not good for us, and we know all the gimmicks that exist. So I think everybody wants to be as healthy as they can and do what's right, as well as but also look good. So
we want to look
give
good.
Give us the secret sauce here. Yeah,
for sure. Well, we look to ancient practices before we invented a lot of chemicals, and what we see transhistorically and cross-culturally is the use of oil to cleanse the skin, which obviously, I know a lot of people have probably heard of oil cleansing, but of course it all depends on the oil and all of that. But that really is the way to cleanse the skin. So whether it was ancient, Greek baths, Roman baths, Turkish baths, the Berber women, Egyptian culture, they all had varying forms, or even using the gua sha in ancient China. It's all about forget even the face, the whole body, where you're oiling, and then there's a tool. It's like the back of a butter knife. It's very gentle, but you can then oil the body and then scrape it, and you're really deeply cleansing the skin. But what we do in modern times, of course, you can do that, and you can get out the gua sha and also work that. But just your daily, like I'm washing my face now, is you just splash your face with water, and then we make beautiful things called the best skin ever. So we've got Immortelle best skin ever, sandalwood best skin ever, our sea buckthorn best skin ever, which is just so popular because they so work. It takes people a moment, especially if you've got that woman that's had cystic acne for a decade or two. Obviously saying, let's wash with oil is going to be a little uncomfortable, and what? Because we've all been told that oil makes pizza faces, right? But we're not talking about petroleum oil, and we're not talking about rancid oil, and we're certainly not talking about soy or mazola or any of that. We're talking about real cold pressed plant oils that aren't rancid. So in the natural world too, I would avoid things like grapeseed, almond oil, peach kernel. Those are just, they have processing issues, plus they're usually rancid by the time you get it at home. So at home, you can use jojoba oil is beautiful, organic jojoba oil, which is the most compatible with our sebum of all the oils, or beautiful coconut oil, which I would add a jojoba to that, or just beautiful olive oil, real true olive oil, because we also know there's a lot of not real olive oil out there, but real olive oil. If you used olive oil or jojoba for the rest of your life, rather than buying your $1,000 face cleansers or your $5 ones from the drugstore, you will be far, far, far better off, far more beautiful at 80 with your olive oil than using those other things. So know that. And all you're doing, then you take a cloth, just like a classic terry face cloth. We make beautiful organic hemp ones, but it doesn't matter. And that cloth and that texture is as much exfoliation as you need. So you wet a spot, it can be warm water, it can be cold water, whatever you feel like. And then you squirt the oil on there, and then you're massaging, circular wiping, whatever you fancy. And that, and obviously if you've got to remove makeup, then use a cotton ball or one of those reusable bamboo things. So it can take off your makeup. You can use it to take off your eye makeup, because the oil will pick up that mascara and stuff, all that kind of stuff. And then you do that, and then you rinse, and then you can simply add then a drop of oil for that sort of finishing polish. But of course we make also creams and serums, but again, you don't have to go that route. It can literally be that simple. and that would transform your skin. And it's just so simple, it would blow your mind.
Wow. So the person that's just going to use the olive oil, the coconut oil,
Yeah.
just doing that.
Yes.
That's incredible. And because it does sound a bit counterintuitive that, you need to clean, you need to cleanse.
That will
to,
cleanse,
yeah,
it will
yeah.
clean, and it won't disrupt the microbiome, and it won't disrupt the bacteria. And jojoba is so good at dissolving, the sebum in the pores and everything. And then if you need, and then we make, for a mask, you can, if you need it, or you could add to that cloth. So you've got the wet spot on the cloth with your drop oil. And then you could add a pinch of baking soda to that, or like a very fine clay on the days when you feel like you need a little bit more exfoliation, for example, and then you can make masks with like clay and honey. It's so easy.
So if we don't want to do it ourselves, tell us like, what are your what are your favorite products? If we wanted, like, if someone wanted to say, okay, so what do you have like in your product? What's your cleanser? What's your oil base? You said you have a few of them.
And just to round up, like if you had like an aloe vera plant in your bathroom, a bottle of jojoba or olive oil, some clay, like you would be good to go for sure. Just get the best quality in those areas. And then from our beautiful libations, I mean, they're all like my children, but I use the Rose Best Skin Ever, or we also made this year Immortelle Best Skin Ever, which I am just loving. And I'll also use that all over my body, or if I get a massage, I'm like, that's the oil I bring for sure, always. And then you can even, like how I explained about the cloth and the oil on the cloth, and then you're exfoliating your face. You can, after a bath or shower, also do that cloth oil thing to your whole body. Or, I'll often sit in the sun and do that after I get out of the lake, because it gives just a nice light exfoliation all over the body and really sends the oil into the skin where, it can nourish and do its magic.
Oh, that's great. And what about moisturizers? I know you said
Yes. Sometimes I'll just use literally the same thing. So I'll just, wash with the Rose Best Skin Ever and then moisturize with it. But of course we have our beautiful serums. So I love, we have the Rose Glow Serum, and the Sandalwood Serum is just so dreamy. And those are like extra concentrated. Then of course we have beautiful eye creams. We have one cream Sundew that has vitamin D in it. So you get a transdermal absorption of vitamin D. And then for any areas that, where you've got like a thing, like a blemish or a melasma patch, or like that's where it's a hyperpigmentation, or just those things that happen to our skin, everything that's kind of not a zit, but you're like, what grew in the night? So for that range, we have the dewdabs, which are like little spot treatments, and they're very concentrated. And so that, for scars or wounds, that's the whole thing. And then we also make the dewdabs in ozonated form. So that's where we run ozone through our oil, and then it's like a little like balm. And then, that's really good too, again, for, anything. There's just so healing.
Wow. This is so very interesting, because so often now, what is that called, where they're using the micro
oh yeah, not the microabrasion,
that is the rollers. What's your thought on those
the roller,
things?
which I'm not into them. I mean, I think on one level, maybe on a scalp, because you might want to deliver things, and unless you're shaving your head. But we don't need to damage the skin, because it's kind of a quick damage. We don't need to damage the skin to make it alive or to drive things in. Our skin will absorb. So I'm not into them.
That's a really interesting concept, because that's opposite the concept of let's damage so that new skin can come and regenerate.
Well, yeah. I feel like in the name of beauty, we go overboard, because, we're just obviously, we feel, especially with the culture, that is just like we're born, and then it's just some, race against the clashing of time against the rocks, where you're just going to inevitably age or whatever. And I just feel like because of that sort of desperation and that cultural pressure, weird things have been created, and we're doing strange things. So I'm always about, again, taking it back to the simplest thing. And again, what does the body our bodies are brilliantly designed. So I'm always wanting to tap in to what's the system in the body first before we override it. And actually I created a thing, it's steps are in my book, and it's called Stop, Seal, and Seed. So to heal the skin and to, clear out the surfactant splinters and to really bring the microbiome back, first we want to stop doing the things that are perforating the skin, not, messing with the microbiome, like, get off that cortisol if possible. Don't do the thing that we can't remember the name of. Don't use harsh
Microablation.
alcohols.
Yeah.
The harsh alcohols, those things, because they're all disrupting the very precious seal of your skin. Then sealing phase is about healing and sealing. And you can even apply this to the guts, right? Because then you got to sort of stop what's perforating the gut, seal and heal the gut. Or we can even think about our mouths. Stop using the things like triclosan or the sodium lauryl sulfate in our toothpaste, which are literally causing bleeding and receding gums. And if the gums are the skin tissue in our mouth, which is important to protect the bones. And then we want to do things that seal the microbiome of the skin, seal the microbiome of the mouth. And sealing the microbiome of the skin is like literally using oil to wash your skin, for example. So that would do that. And then seed. So then we're looking at reseeding. We want to think of our microbiomes as like bank accounts that we want to keep with a diverse investments of different beneficial bacteria.
And they found the good news, though, with that is that that's all the research now in terms of this diversity of bacteria and bone health and all sorts of health. So this is exactly what's been happening now. So it's very interesting now taking that to the skin as well.
Yeah, it ties it all together. And when we have healthy guts, we will for sure have healthy skin as well, because if something can't find its way out of the gut, it's going to come up as that blackhead in your nose or that hormonal acne, because the stomach isn't functioning so great, which is affecting the liver, and then the liver can't process those monthly hormones, and then you've got your chin line acne, for example.
Wow. So we can go on and on. There's just so much to talk about here, but I love your products. And I think it's just exciting. First of all, I like your minimalist approach. I think that's, start with your olive oil, start with your coconut oil. And then if you want more, you have a whole store and like all sorts of really interesting concoctions. And I can't wait to try more of them because they sound so incredible. But anyway,
banquet.
Yeah. So is there anything before we end? Is there anything else you just want to end on? And there'll be links for everything, your book, as well as all the products. But is there anything that you just want to share with this community before we leave?
Well, I know it's always can be like a lot of information, or we're sort of turning things upside down that maybe we've learned, but just know, I'm really here. So sometimes we have to go a bit complex to understand something simple, but really I'm just here to help people feel like at ease in their bodies, feel good in your skin. And I feel like, it's just so wonderful when you can hear or you get feedback about people just really starting to feel confident in their skin. And I think that that's just, it's just so good when we can feel good in who we are. So
how long would you say it takes when people start a new regimen changing?
Yeah, I mean, people see things in 24 hours. Like even people with a lot of acne, they're just like, oh my God, it's like less today. Very rarely, I'd say, like 5% of the time, there might be some detox that happens. But the great thing is often there isn't. And I'm a big believer in what we're eating is going to be reflected. I think it's very important for good health and good skin to eat well too. But what I love is that, oftentimes just switching to washing with the best skin ever, people didn't have to change their diet, which is awesome. And then that brings clarity and confidence that may give energy in other areas, which is great. Just start where you can.
Well, thank you so much. This has been so enlightening for me. And I think that, it just all ties it into all these great things we can do that improve our skin, but really help our whole body, our bones, everything. And thank you for the work you do and being so creative and coming up with these and having that passion to smell and do and put it all together, because it's not something everybody can do. It's a talent, really. So thank you for creating all this great stuff that we have access to. So, and I'll have all the links for everything in the show notes as well.
Wonderful. It's been such a pleasure talking to you today.
Yeah, thanks so much. I hope you enjoyed my interview with Nadine and now have some easy practices and some new ways to look at how you're taking care of your skin. All the links Nadine talked about will be in the show notes, and she's giving our community a 10% discount on all her products. Just use the coupon code BONEHEALTH. So thanks so much for tuning in, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.